Next on Currents News, a group of immigrants claiming their wages were stolen, and they're not alone. Wage theft cases skyrocketing during the pandemic. I'm Emily Druby, that's ahead.
A grim warning from the White House Coronavirus Task Force as we find out when the first vaccine batch will be delivered to New York. Marking World AIDS Day and remembering those we lost at a mass at St. Augustine's Church in Park Slope. Plus, a hidden treasure trove of history and faith inside a warehouse in Bushwick. The news starts right now. Good evening, I'm Christine Persichetti. They came to America for a better life. Instead, workers building a luxury high-rise in Midtown say that dream turned into a nightmare when they didn't get paid. Currents News' Emily Druby reports a Brooklyn-based immigrant workers' rights organization is trying to help. 14 workers out $29,000, wages they say were stolen.
We have nothing in our pockets and we really need the money.
Osmar Cruz is one of them, claiming he's owed for almost 2 months of work and that he and his colleagues were fired after speaking up. Desperate for help, they turned to the Workers' Justice Project, a Brooklyn-based immigrant workers' rights organization. Osmar came to the U.S. 5 years ago.
Some people are crying because they don't have anything to feed their families.
Workers' Justice Project says wage theft has become prevalent during the pandemic. Before, they used to see about 4 cases a week. Now they see at least 12. It's happening at all kinds of jobs: delivery, construction, and domestic work. Workers' Justice Project put together this protest for Asmar and his colleagues outside of 430 East 58th Street, where the workers earned their wages, a luxury building that pierces the sky.
Our families, our children, they are asking for food, and we don't have anything. And now it's holidays, they are asking for their gifts, and we don't have anything to give them. So that's where we're protesting.
Protesting for their money and for their jobs back. In this case, the workers say Casway Contracting hired a subcontractor, Mario Infante, and he hired them. The workers are holding both accountable for the money. Speaking to Currents News, the subcontractor said Casway also owes them a large sum of money, adding that as a small company, waiting for it has been very difficult. Casway Contracting has yet to return our request for comment, but they did answer the workers, calling them during the protest to set up another call, essentially the first step of negotiations.
Thank you very much.
Workers' Justice Project tells Currents News this is a step in the right direction, but the hard work is not yet done. They've still got negotiations ahead of them, and if those fall through, potentially more protests, which means more time before these workers get the money they so desperately need. In Midtown Manhattan, Emily Druby, Currents News. Once the Food and Drug Administration gives the green light to a COVID-19 vaccine, the first batch for New York State should arrive on December 15th. Governor Andrew Cuomo made the announcement today, saying that delivery will include enough doses of Pfizer's vaccine to inoculate 170,000 people. The first doses will go to frontline healthcare workers as well as nursing home residents and staff. The Centers for Disease Control and Prevention is changing its quarantine recommendations. The agency is set to shorten the length of time for quarantine after exposure to someone who is positive for COVID-19. The new guidelines will allow people to resume normal activity after 10 days, 7 days if they have a negative test result. That's down from the 14 days recommended since the beginning of the pandemic. That change comes as the White House Coronavirus Task Force issues a grim warning. The risk of becoming infected is at an historic high. Karen Kafa has the very latest.
A dramatic, dire assessment from the White House Coronavirus Task Force to states. Writing in a weekly report, we are in a very dangerous place due to the current extremely high COVID baseline and limited hospital capacity. A further post-Thanksgiving surge will compromise COVID patient care as well as medical care overall. Doctors nationwide are bracing for the worst.
Every doctor's worst fear is that patients come to us and we can't give them the best care. We can't give them everything they need to take care of them.
Urgency also felt on Capitol Hill as lawmakers resumed talks about getting Americans some sort of financial relief soon. Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell says he's working on a bill that would include more small business funding and an extension of the federal unemployment benefit set to expire at the end of the year.
In the last several days, the Democratic leaders have signaled a new willingness to engage in good faith.
Treasury Secretary Steven Mnuchin said President Trump would sign McConnell's bill. Meanwhile, the CDC has laid out priority groups, medical workers and long-term care facility residents for the first wave of vaccines expected to reach states before Christmas.
I think states are getting ready. They've been working on their plans now for a couple months.
On Wednesday, the UK approved Pfizer-BioNTech's vaccine, the first Western country to sign off on a COVID-19 vaccine. In Washington, Karen Kafa, Currents News.
School closures are having a negative impact on learning. A nonprofit company that administers standardized testing looked at data from over 4 million students. They found that kids in elementary and middle school fell behind in math during pandemic closures, and they say they may be underestimating the impact on minorities and lower income students because many didn't take part in the 2020 testing. The reasons given: missing school and lack of reliable technology. New York City preschool and kindergarten students won't have to be part of weekly COVID-19 testing when schools reopen next week. Health officials say that's because they're less likely to catch and transmit the virus and have a more difficult time with testing. The families of students in first grade and above will be required to consent to random testing in order to return to in-person classes. Mayor Bill de Blasio is warning public school families that if they signed up to return to in-person classes, they must use it or lose it. He says students have to show up or have a legitimate excuse and let the school know what's going on or face being moved to all remote learning. City officials say this is needed to help schools get a final number for in-person students so they can quickly begin expanding the number of school days for kids enrolled for in-person classes. The Diocese of Brooklyn brought awareness to another deadly virus last night, HIV/AIDS. The Mass held at St. Augustine's Church in Park Slope in honor of World AIDS Day. The parish, which has an LGBT outreach group, has been remembering those who have passed and bringing awareness to the disease for close to 2 decades. Bob BIEGEN, one of the coordinators for the service, speaks of the importance of the liturgy.
I think just remembering people who have gone before us is so very important. We honor them, we let them know we still love them, and also we put young people on notice that this is still a disease which is ravaging especially our younger population.
The church also showing a visual display of the loved ones lost outside by hanging red name tags with the victims' names on the church's fence. Pope Francis doing his part to fight AIDS. Last year, he visited a hospital in Mozambique where the DREAM program, which stands for Disease Relief Through Excellent and Advanced Means, has been providing free health care against the virus.
This center shows us that there are always people ready to stop and show compassion, who do not yield to the temptation to say, there is nothing to be done, or it's impossible to fight this scourge. Instead, you have set about finding solutions.
The DREAM program was born in 2002 and is directed by the community of Sant'Egidio. It offers antiretroviral therapy to people who can't afford it or have a hard time finding transportation to access it. DREAM has allowed for the births of 130,000 healthy babies in Africa, children of people with the virus. The program offers a new public health model based on health education and the participation of beneficiaries to form a new culture. AIDS is no longer a death sentence, but a problem that can be treated. At the same time, patients recognize that access to treatment is free and a right.
In Africa, people thought it was impossible to do antiretroviral therapy as was done in the West, for various reasons, prejudice, cultural motives, etc. We showed this wasn't true, and we fought to introduce free antiretroviral therapy. These are people who could not have afforded medical treatment on their own.
More than 1 year after the Pope's visit, in the middle of an unrelenting pandemic, the main challenge continues to be guaranteeing universal access to medication, especially in rural areas.
HIV was and is still a pandemic. COVID-19 is a pandemic, and we'll have other pandemics in the future. Being able to continue to work to set up programs like that of the community of Sant'Egidio, which creates structures and a new health culture in countries, means offering a possibility to everyone to not be unprepared.
Right now, the DREAM program is active in 10 countries with 50 centers and 28 laboratory clinics and has helped millions of people. There's a lot more news headed your way.
Have you ever wondered what happens to old church treasures when one closes or undergoes renovations? Well, in the Brooklyn Diocese, they come here. I'm Jessica Easthope with an inside look.
Also, how the good works of 4 missionaries murdered in El Salvador inspired a mother to move her family there to carry on their work. And the story of a chance meeting that saved a woman's home from foreclosure. She says God worked through her Good Samaritan.
Now you can help us put your faith in the news. The next time you capture a newsworthy event, send us your pictures or video. It's easy. Go to netny.tv/send us, and you may see your submission on Currents News.
What was once an auto body shop is now a place where history and faith collide. Currents News' Jessica Easthope takes us to Bushwick, where a warehouse of wonders houses religious objects and artifacts that are no longer in use.
On a dead-end street in Bushwick, there's a hidden treasure trove of history and faith.
Joseph with the child Jesus, we have Mary.
This warehouse isn't sacred, but all of the things that make a church holy are housed in this building.
You're talking history here, and all of these objects were devotional donations from people of generations ago. So I feel like a custodian of the heritage of the diocese. This is the seal of from Bishop Ford High School.
Monsignor John Bracken, the former Vicar General and current director of the Office of Patrimony, oversees it all.
Now these are interesting pews because these came from a convent.
Whenever a church in the Brooklyn Diocese closes, undergoes a renovation, or makes a change, whatever the church doesn't need comes here.
And there is the tabernacle.
The warehouse that used to be an auto repair shop is now home to everything from the functional to the sacred. And among the statues, pews, stained glass windows, and doors are some truly special items.
In the stone are the relics of the saints.
That's how the statues get here, but how they go is more complicated.
These are the books where we categorize all the things that we have.
All of the items are photographed, documented, and appraised. Churches can take what they want in exchange for donations.
It's a minor donation.
Some bigger than others.
A bell like this gets evaluated.
There are even items that make their way across the world.
To deal with the effects of the earthquake in Haiti, and we were able to send pews and a couple of bells. We used to have a big, beautiful stainless steel statue of Lady of the Skies, and it is now in Costa Rica.
When there's no longer a need for them, churches give everything from their most precious statues even to the collection baskets. But not anyone can take them. They stay within the church community.
We don't want things that were given as devotional items by people of generations ago to wind up in the wrong places. The priest's chair with the deacon.
Though the items are removed from their original sacred places, for Monsignor Bracken, their holiness remains. Some objects date back decades, others even longer, but each holds a special piece of the Diocese of Brooklyn.
Being able to take something, to place it in a home, means that the river of faith continues to flow here richly in Brooklyn.
Monsignor Bracken is confident every item will find a home someday. Until then, they sit in the place where history and faith collide. In Bushwick, Jessica Easthope, Currents News.
The NYPD and the Catholic Church joining forces to get guns off the streets. A gun buyback will be held this Saturday at Our Lady of Mount Carmel Church in Astoria, Queens. The last 2 buybacks in August took close to 200 guns off the streets of Queens. If you'd like to participate, again, it's being held at Our Lady of Mount Carmel Church in Astoria, Queens this Saturday, December 5th from 10 a.m. to 4 p.m.
Sono un esempio per tutti a diventare fedeli discepoli missionari.
Pope Francis speaking about the 4 missionaries from the U.S. who were brutally murdered 40 years ago in El Salvador. And just as the Pope said, one woman from Pennsylvania did transform her life and that of her family, so inspired by the good work of MARYKNOLL sisters Ida Ford, Maura Clark, Ursuline sister Dorothy Kazel, and lay missionary Jean Donovan, Melissa Altman moved her entire family down to El Salvador to continue their work as a lay missioner. She joins us now. Melissa, it's just incredible to hear this. You were just a baby when this happened in 1980. So how did these women inspire you to get involved as an adult and move your family to El Salvador?
Well, when I was a a college graduate, I was a senior, I took a class on Latin America during the Cold War. And that's actually one of the first times that I heard about the four martyrs. And I just was really inspired by the work that they had done, the fact that they picked up their lives and moved to a completely foreign place, and the way that they lived alongside the poor. And it just really inspired me, and it planted a seed that I didn't really realize it was planting during that senior year in college. But it's something that stuck with me throughout my time as a campus minister at Bishop Lockland Memorial High School in Brooklyn, and it never stopped growing. So that's, I don't know, I guess those are sometimes how faith works. Things start and you don't know exactly where you'll end up.
Sure. And what has your experience been like doing the mission work?
It's been, of course, anytime you decide to move to a completely different culture with a different language, there's always ups and downs. But it's been really life-giving for me. Personally, I work at a women's cooperative where the town where I work is actually, some of the members of the co-op actually knew Sister Dorothy and Jean Donovan because they did a lot of different medicine and food campaigns to Chalatenango, a part during the war. So some of the people that I actually work with right now knew those examples. And so the fact that I just sort of joined the cooperative in a place that already knew of these wonderful women, it made my work sort of quite easy because they knew what I was about. They knew that I was there to accompany them, to be in solidarity with them through the good times and the bad times, which is exactly what these three sisters and this lay missioner did.
Wow, and I'm a mom myself, and I know your children were just 7 and 3 years old when you moved to El Salvador. So what's it been like for them?
It's been an amazing experience. My daughter is now 10 and my son is now 13. And at this point, they've spent most of their childhood here in El Salvador, and their Spanish is amazing. They can run circles around us whenever we're talking to people. But it's just been a really great experience to watch them actually advocate for the poor, because we used to live in the countryside, and they actually, they were able to, their friends were, had dirt floors and maybe like very humble houses. And they were their friends. It never occurred to them that maybe they were on a different social economic level or any of that. And so they've been able to really see the world in a different way. And that's exactly what my husband and I wanted for our family when we moved here, is we wanted to give them an opportunity to see a different part of the world and the way that other people live. So it's been amazing.
What a learning experience, and now you are inspiring many others. Melissa Altman, lay missioner for MARYKNOLL in El Salvador. Thanks for being with us.
Thank you so much.
And if you're interested in learning more about how you can get involved with the MARYKNOLL lay missionary work, head on over to mklm.org. The president of France is putting pressure on the country's Muslims in the wake of several suspected Islamist attacks. Emmanuel Macron is asking the country's Muslim leaders to sign a charter stating that Islam is a religion and not a political movement. This comes after at least 3 terrorist attacks occurred this past year. Muslim leaders are meeting with Macron this week to discuss the charter. Still to come on Currents News, a missionary priest marks his 100th birthday with a pandemic parade. And divine intervention and the kindness of a stranger is credited for helping save a woman's home from foreclosure. Do you have a story idea or want to share a tip? Email us at newstips@desalesmedia.org or call our 24-hour number, 718-517-3122. We'll be right back. That familiar sound of the season is back. And it's bigger than ever. The Salvation Army has placed a massive red kettle in Times Square. It's 32 feet tall and has interactive features that trigger built-in LED lights and sounds when people text a donation. Those donations needed now more than ever thanks to the pandemic. If you'd like to text a donation and make the big kettle light up, all you have to do is text Giant Red Kettle to 41444. A man in D.C. decided to raise some money for a complete stranger after hearing she might lose her home after losing her job. She says God worked through him. Victoria Sanchez has the story.
Then one day Barbara just walked on by.
That's how the story began.
58-year-old Barbara Miner credits divine intervention for putting her in the path of 32-year-old Tree Trin, a perfect stranger.
From a can of paint, I just met him. He changed my life. He changed my life.
The pandemic magnified a rough few years for Miner. She had lost her job as a homeless shelter case manager. Her last living relative, her brother, died in February. The bills were piling up when she met Trin at the Brookland neighborhood at a free food pantry he started.
It's a judgment-free zone. People can come up anytime. It's open 24/7.
His generosity and spirit shocked her.
I learned that Tree was unemployed himself.
The pandemic put an end to his photo booth business, so he started a nonprofit, With Kindness DC. After hearing Miner's story, he helped raise enough money to cover one big bill.
It was $10,445, and they wanted it immediately.
While Miner paid off her mortgage years ago, the condo fees didn't stop. She faced foreclosure.
You paid off all your mortgages. You know, how can they kick you out? Is that even legal?
$13,000 raised in just weeks will keep Miner in her home. As a thank you, she baked him some cookies. And with those unused photo booths, he printed her business cards.
And he said, Barbara, it's time to start your cookie business. We're going to sell cookies.
A sweet ending to a chance meeting.
Again, that was Victoria Sanchez reporting. And what's even more sweet, Miner's cookie business is just starting to get off the ground. Another heartwarming story. We'd like to say happy birthday to Father John Van de Peer, who turned 100 this past Sunday. More than 50 cars decked out with streamers, signs, and balloons paraded by his home in Arlington, Virginia, where he lives at Missionhurst, the American headquarters for the Congregation of the Immaculate Heart of Mary. Ordained as a priest in 1947, Father Van de Peer spent more than 40 years at St. Charles Borromeo in Philadelphia and 20 at St. Malachi in southern Pennsylvania. Happy birthday. And that is Currents News. I'm Christine Persichetti. Thank you for joining us because we are putting your faith in the news. Hope to see you again next time.